Following along with our purely competitive firm, again, we have our production, our cost columns over here. What we want to do is we want to find out exactly and see exactly what would happen given a price change within the industry for a particular firm. In order for us to do this, I have these steps listed up here, and these are basically the same steps that are in the assignment page for the week that we're talking about when this particular topic becomes available. The first step, we're going to check to see if the price that the market will pay is greater than my average variable cost. If so, I'm going to go to step 2. The second step, to find the quantity where I produce, I'm going to find the point where my marginal revenue is equal to my marginal cost, when marginal cost is increasing. We already talked about that. The third step, at the quantity in number 2, I'm going to subtract my average total cost from my marginal revenue. That's going to give me my profit or loss per unit. To find my total profit and loss in step 4, I'm going to multiply my result in number 3 by the quantity that I found in number 2. Now, I went over them very quickly, but again, these are listed on the assignment page for that particular week assignment whenever this is assigned. So you can just go ahead and do them there. So let us assume that for some reason the market comes down and says, I'm going to pay $131. The price that I will pay is $131 for this particular good. If this particular good is $131, then I know that my marginal revenue is equal to $131 because in a purely competitive firm, price is equal to marginal revenue. And therefore, since my price is $131, my marginal revenue is $131. Number 1, I'm going to check to see if my price is greater than my average variable cost. At any point, is my price of $131 greater than any number that's in my average variable cost column? Well, we can see right away that $131 is greater than any number. So therefore, I'm going to go to step 2. Step 2 is going to tell me the quantity that I will produce at this particular amount. But first, I have to find the point where my marginal revenue is equal to my marginal cost when my marginal cost is increasing. Well, I'm going to compare these two columns. My marginal revenue is $131. My marginal cost is $90. $131.80, $131.70, $131.60. $131.70, $131.80, $131.90, $131.110, $131.130. And I'm not going to produce this unit because my marginal cost is greater. So at this point, I will produce at the point where my marginal revenue is equal to $131, my marginal cost is equal to $130. That's the greatest point of equality, but heavier on marginal revenue side. So therefore, I will produce 9 units. So in this case, I will produce 9 units. In the quantity, at the quantity that I found in number 2, which is 9, I'm going to subtract my average total cost from my marginal revenue. My average total cost at 9 units is 97. Marginal revenue is equal to 131. My average total cost at 9 units is 97.78. And therefore, let's see, 22, 3. I make $33.22 per unit. And I'm producing 9 units, so therefore I make somewhere around $299 in profit. Taking 9 units, this is profit or loss per unit, times 9 units gives me $299. So at a price, I just made a little chart here. At a price of $131, each firm will produce 9 units. The profit or loss per firm is $33.22. or my total profit or loss is 9 times 33.22, or roughly $299. All right. And if I wanted to see that up here at 131, I produce at the point, this is my marginal revenue, I produce at this point, in this case, it's 9 units. Okay, let us assume that we go to bed on a Sunday and we wake up, and for some reason, doesn't matter why, we're not concerned about that, but for some reason, people are only going to pay $81 for my wheat. So therefore, if my wheat is $81, this means that my marginal revenue is equal to $81. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to check to see if my price of $81 is greater than my average variable cost at any point. Well, if we take a look at this, you're giving me $81 and I see that my price of $81 is greater than any of these numbers in this particular column. So I'm going to go to step 2. I know now that I produce, but now I have to find out at what quantity I produce. Well, the quantity I produce is the quantity where I will produce at the point where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost when marginal cost is increasing. So I know that my marginal revenue is $81 at each unit because it is perfectly elastic. So therefore, I'm going to find the point where they are greatly equal. 90 to 81, that's higher. 80 to 81, that's close. 70 to 81, 60 to 81, 70 to 81, 80 to 81, and 90 to 81, I don't want to produce. So in this case, I will produce 6 units. I didn't produce 6 units up 2 units because my marginal cost was not increasing. We went over that in a separate lecture. So in this case, the equality is here, the equality is here. But I choose not because in this case, my marginal cost, is decreasing, and I'm making more money. I'm making $11, I'm making $21 extra dollars. 11 extra dollars, 21 extra dollars, $11 extra on that unit, and finally equality. So therefore, I will produce 6 units. Well, my marginal revenue is $81 at 6 units. Marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost, 81 is equal to 80 at 6 units. My average total cost at 6 units is, I'm trying to go across here, looks like 91.67 minus 91.67. So therefore, I'm actually losing $10.67 per unit. And I'm producing 6 units, which gives me approximately $39 that I lose. If I don't produce, I lose my fixed cost. Now, to find total fixed cost, to find my total fixed cost, all I have to do is look at my average fixed cost at the first unit. And that is equal to my total fixed cost. So if I don't produce, this is my average fixed cost at my first unit, this is equal to my total fixed cost. It's the same. So therefore, if I don't produce, I lose $100. In this case, I have actually I think this is $36. I'm sorry. This might be $36. $39. I have $61 left over. I have $61 left over. After I paid all my variable cost, all my labor and all my materials, I have $61 left over that I can now hand the person who owns my farm and pay him $61. I lose $39, but it's not as great as not producing and losing $100. So I'd rather minimize my losses and produce 6 units and only lose $39. So therefore, if I were to take this at this particular price, this would be $71. I would produce 6 units. Now, if you can look up here real quick, I'm covering this much of my average variable cost. I'm losing this much. So I lose 39 and that I'm losing, but I have $61 to give to my landlord. So at a price of $81, I will produce 6 units times a negative 1067, which means I lose about $39. I go to bed the following Monday and I realize that people are only going to pay me $71 for this particular good. Well, if my price is $71, then my marginal revenue is $71. And the first thing I'm going to do is check to see if my price is greater than my average variable cost. They're only going to give me $71, and I can see that my average variable cost in all of these situations at any quantity here is greater than what people are going to pay me for. So therefore, at that point, I decide it's easy, it's cheaper for me at a price of $71 to produce 0 units. And I have a total loss of $100, which is equal to my fixed cost. Even if I went to the lowest point, which is $74, I have to pay somebody $3 more than people are giving me. So I lose money. I lose more than my fixed cost. It's better to stay home. And therefore, this becomes 0. And I lose my fixed cost. If this were 1,000 firms in the industry at a price of $131, this particular firm will produce 9,000 units. At $6, at $81, 6,000 units. I have the industry up here. But I want you to take particular note to here. At this should be $81, excuse me. At $81, I produced 6 units. At $131, I produced 9 units. And take a look at this portion right in here. This becomes my marginal cost curve, becomes my short run supply curve. Law of supply. People are going to pay me more money. I'm going to produce more because the more I produce at a higher price, the more profit I make. And this can be seen down here. Okay, assuming we are all working in the McConnell book, there's a chart on page 81 that I suggest that you complete and try to get these numbers, because you do have a problem coming up that is pretty critical. And just as an exercise, I would suggest doing that. This is an extremely important chapter and somewhat challenging. So it's very important that you read this sometimes 3 and 4 times in order to get the full impact out of it. Again, thank you very much. Have a good day. If you have any questions, again, you know the routine. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.